Here are the top stories for today, May 7, 2021. Beefing up vaccination, another 1.5 million doses of government-procured Sinovac vaccines arrived today. The country's vaccine czar says more vaccine supplies are set to arrive this month. The government tightens measures against the entry of a double mutant coronavirus variant that was first detected in India. Time to come clean. The country's top diplomat seeks answers on why the country withdrawn its ships during the 2012 Scarborough Shoal standoff with China and who is behind it. And from insurgency to development, a town that was once a communist hotbed is slowly making a name for itself as a tourist destination. Good day, I'm Marita Muahe. Welcome to the PNA Newsroom. We start with another boost to the country's COVID-19 vaccination drive. Some 1.5 million doses of Sinovac's CoronaVac jabs purchased by the government from China arrived in the country this morning. Vaccine Czar Secretary Carlito Galvez Jr. and Health Secretary Francisco Duque III welcomed the vaccines loaded in a commercial flight that landed at the NAIA Terminal 2 shortly before 8 a.m. This forms part of the 2 million CoronaVac doses purchased by the government, with the remaining 500,000 doses set to arrive also this month. This brought the total number of delivered Chinese-made jabs in the country to 5 million. Meanwhile, Galvez said another 2 million doses of AstraZeneca jabs will arrive tomorrow, while 193,000 doses of Pfizer COVID-19 vaccines will arrive on May 11. More Sputnik V jabs are also arriving on the third week of May. The country has earlier received over 525,000 AstraZeneca doses from the COVAX facility and an initial 15,000 Sputnik V doses from Russia. People who are improperly wearing a face mask will be arrested and detained. Following the order of President Rodrigo Duterte, Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque said cops can carry out a warrantless arrest against violators of quarantine and health protocol.
Yung pag-aresto naman po, dapat po sang-ayon po yan sa ordinansa o sang-ayon sa batas. Kung wala pong ordinansa, ay nakasaad naman po sa Revised Penal Code, no, na maximum of 12 hours. No, at kung hindi makasuhan, ay kinakailangan pawalan.
Meanwhile, Justice Secretary Menardo Guevara said the President's directives takes effect immediately even without the guidelines. He said arrested individuals will undergo inquest procedures conducted by DOJ prosecutors. The government is doing its best to stop the possible transmission of the double mutant coronavirus variant from India. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque told the public not to worry since all travelers from India who recently entered the country have completed the 14-day mandatory quarantine upon arrival and underwent RT-PCR testing on their 6th or 7th day. Their samples are currently being checked to see if they are carrying new COVID-19 variants. The Philippines earlier suspended the entry of passengers from India from April 19 to May 14 and expanded the travel ban to those coming from Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nepal, and Sri Lanka.
Ang rule po talagang strict facility quarantine sila for 14 days. So, kampante naman po tayo na dahil nga sinasubject sila to 14 days quarantine regardless of their PCR test, mapipigilan po ang pagpasok ng Indian strain. No? Well, at least gagawin po natin ang lahat ng hakbang para mapigilan o mapatagal ang pagpasok.
The Department of Health has committed 22 million pesos for the conduct of clinical trials on the use of IVERMECTIN for COVID-19. The trials are expected to start by June. DOST Secretary Fortunato de la Peña said this would run for 8 months, as it would probably take 6 months before they could get 1,200 adult volunteers. Clinical trial participants should be 18 years old and above and must be asymptomatic or mild to moderate cases. The project team, led by Dr. Aileen Wang of the University of the Philippines, Manila, is coordinating with the Philippine Red Cross and other facilities to find volunteers. Philippine Council for Health Research and Development Executive Director Jaime Montoya said a randomized double-blind placebo-controlled trial will be done, which may help health experts to determine if the drug can reduce the number of days the patient will experience symptoms. Clinical trials on the use of virgin coconut oil for patients with moderate to severe COVID-19 will go beyond its May 31st deadline. DOST Secretary Fortunato de la Peña said this is due to fewer clinical participants with severe cases. De la Peña said the team is getting participants from the admitted patients at the Philippine General Hospital. However, there was a time when severe cases admissions at PGH had decreased. There are now 42 out of the 74 target participants. Meanwhile, he said the clinical trial conducted in a community in Laguna for those with mild cases ended last November. He said those who were given with VCO got well 5 days ahead of the group that did not take the VCO. In our foreign news, India sets a new global record after it registered over 412,000 COVID-19 cases within the last 24 hours. This is the second time that India surpassed 400,000 cases in a day. India's health ministry reported 412,262 new cases, taking the country's total number of infections to over 21 million. With a record 3,980 new fatalities, the death toll reached 230,168. Many experts believe that cases and deaths are undercounted. The situation has been worse in the capital, New Delhi, where hospitals have raised alarms on social media, begging for oxygen, with many approaching courts for intervention. A top Indian scientist also warned Wednesday that a third wave is inevitable in the country. Meanwhile, Belgium has recorded over 1 million coronavirus cases since the start of the pandemic. With the infection rate showing gradual signs of decline, the Belgian government will lift the night curfew starting tomorrow, May 8. This will allow the people to stay out after 10 p.m. Here is a look at COVID-19 figures around the world. Still to come, President Rodrigo Duterte and the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia discuss reforms on the KAFALA system and cooperation against COVID-19. And patrols that drove away Chinese vessels at the Sabina Shoal drew praises from lawmakers. Details ahead. This is the PNA Newsroom.
Sa matinding laban natin sa Coronavirus Disease 2019, sugpuin din natin ang pagkalat ng fake news. Huwag magbahagi ng impormasyon na hindi tiyak ang pinagmulan. I-check mabuti ang source ng balita. Kumuha lamang ng impormasyon mula sa mga official channel ng Department of Health. Huwag magpadala sa maling balita, basta't sama-sama at laging handa. Kaya natin to. Isang paalala mula sa DOH, PCOO, KBP at ng himpilang ito. Pangalagaan ng sarili laban sa Coronavirus Disease 2019. Hanggat maaari, umiwas sa mataong lugar. Iwasang hawakan ang ilong at bibig, maging malinis sa katawan at ugaliin ang wastong paghuhugas ng kamay. Takpan ang ilong at bibig kung uubo o babahing. Umiwas sa mga taong nagpapakita ng sintomas ng coronavirus disease gaya ng lagnat, ubo at sipon. Magsuot ng face mask kung kinakailangan. Basta't sama-sama at laging handa. Kaya natin to. Isang paalala mula sa DOH, PCOO, KBP at ng himpilang ito.
Foreign Affairs Secretary Teodoro Locsin Jr. said it is time to come clean on who ordered and why the country pulled out its ships during the Scarborough show standoff with China in 2012. In a series of tweets, Locsin said President Rodrigo Duterte did not give away an inch of the country's territory in the West Philippine Sea, but a lot has been lost during the previous administration. Locsin's statement came a day after Duterte challenged former Supreme Court Senior Associate Justice Antonio Carpio to a debate on the West Philippine Sea. Former Foreign Affairs Secretary Albert Del Rosario previously explained that the United States brokered an agreement with China for the withdrawal of all ships on both sides back then, but Chinese President Xi Jinping deceitfully breached the deal. Meanwhile, Carpio clarified that he was never involved in the decision to withdraw the Philippine Navy ships from the West Philippine Sea in 2012. He accepted the invitation of the President for a debate on the matter. Lawmakers praised the Philippine Coast Guard and the Armed Forces of the Philippines after driving away Chinese ships off Sabina Shoal last week. Senator Panfilo Lacson, who chairs the Committee on National Defense, said the AFP Western Command and the PCG must continue to watch over the shoal, as China has already made 3 incursions into our exclusive economic zone. He said authorities should not let their guard down, as China is likely to do so again if they relax. Senator Risa Ontiveros also commended the PCG as well as the Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources, or BIFAR, who trailed the Chinese ships until they were off Sabina Shoal. She said she is hoping to see more of that incident and inspires more authorities to do the same. Senator Christopher Bongo meanwhile said that President Duterte, who is the chief architect of the country's foreign policy, will always uphold and advance the interest and welfare of the country and the people. Defense Secretary Delphine Lorenzana assures that the Philippine Coast Guard and the Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources will not stop their patrols on the West Philippine Sea and the Kalayaan Island Group. Lorenzana said the President's orders have been firm and straightforward. That is to defend what is rightfully ours without going to war and maintain the peace in the seas. As such, he said the government will continue in protecting our rightful territories. Lorenzana also clarifies that even without the 2016 Permanent Court of Arbitration ruling, as mentioned by President Duterte, the Department of National Defense will continue to defend and protect the country's territory. President Rodrigo Duterte on Wednesday night received a phone call from Saudi Arabia Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman to discuss efforts to reform the KAFALA system and ramp up cooperation to address the COVID-19 pandemic. Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque said the two leaders tackled Saudi Arabia's resolve to protecting and upholding the rights of Filipino workers in the kingdom. He said Duterte renewed his call to end the KAFALA sponsorship system, a mechanism in the Gulf nations used to monitor migrant workers through an employer acting as a sponsor. Roque said the two leaders also discussed the need to ensure universal access to COVID-19 vaccines. Duterte also thanked Saudi Arabia for including Filipinos in the kingdom's COVID-19 vaccination program. For his part, Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman said the vaccination program will be implemented until all Filipinos in the kingdom are inoculated. Both leaders also reaffirmed their commitment to further strengthen cooperation between the two countries. An educator in Cabanatuan City is urging the public to help make lives better amid the pandemic in the spirit of bayanihan. Jojo Gallego, president of the MV Gallego Foundation Colleges, said the government continuously provides the people with their needs while addressing the COVID-19 outbreak, but it needs the public's support. The MVGFC on Thursday launched its Bayanihan project, which involved the distribution of food packs to several villages, persons with disabilities, and a group of tricycle drivers. On top of the food support, they also handed scholarship vouchers to qualified students. Gallego said the school hopes to support the government through Bayanihan. The MVGFC is one of the first nursing schools in Central Luzon, established in 1960 by the country's first health secretary, Manuel Gallego. In other news, an environmental advocacy group in Dumaguete City is asking barangay officials to speed up the establishment of materials recovery facilities in response to the city's growing problem on trash disposal. Gary Rosales, president of Kinaiyahan and treasurer of the Friends of Negros Oriental, noted that only 5 barangays in Dumaguete have so far established and are operating recycling hubs. These zero-waste barangays are Looc, Apiapi, Bantayan, Kalindagan, and Banilad. Rosales called on the people to cooperate and participate in efforts to reduce the city's residual trash through household segregation. With the city being ordered to shut down its current open dump site in Barangay Candaway, the local government still has to find an area for a sanitary landfill. The Department of Labor and Employment is ready to assist local government units outside the NCR Plus bubble to require contact tracers. Secretary Silvestre Bello has instructed DOLE to tap the Tulong Panghanap Buhay sa Ating Disadvantaged Displaced Workers or TUPAD program to answer requests by LGUs for contact tracing. The agency has so far hired about 5,700 contact tracers under TUPAD. DOLE continues to encourage other informal sector workers to apply for the Emergency Employment Program, where they will be employed from 10 to 30 days. The worker's salary will be based on the prevailing minimum wage in the region where they are hired. More stories from the newsroom. Promoting reproductive health, community pantries in General Santos City give contraceptives to beneficiaries. And a summer town is slowly transforming into a tourist spot from being once a communist hotbed. Back after a quick break, stay with the PNA Newsroom.
Tandaan ang tamang paraan ng paghuhugas at paglilinis ng kamay upang makaiwas sa iba't ibang karamdaman. Basain ng tubig ang mga kamay at sabunin. Unang sabunin ang mga palad at ang likod ng mga kamay. Kuskusin na maigi ang pagitan ng mga daliri at maging ang mga kuko. Isunod ang pagitan ng mga hinlalaki at kuskusin ng paikot ang mga dulo ng mga daliri sa magkabilang palad. Banlawang mabuti ang mga kamay sa malinis na tubig at patuyuin ang mga kamay gamit ang single-use towel o air dryer. Basta't sama-sama at laging handa, kaya natin to! Isang paalala mula sa DOH, PCOO, KBP at ng himpilang ito. Alamin ang mga dapat gawin sa lugar ng trabaho laban sa Coronavirus Disease 2019. Ang mga kumpanya ay dapat magbigay ng face mask sa kanilang mga empleyado. Bukod dito, magbigay kaalaman din patungkol sa COVID-19. Siguraduhin malinis ang kapaligiran. Maglagay ng sabon at hand sanitizer sa mga palikuran. Siguraduhin ligtas at nalutong maigi ang mga pagkain sa kantina. Obserbahan ang kalusugan ng mga empleyado at katrabaho. Kung sakali man na mayroon silang sintomas ng coronavirus disease, gaya ng lagnat, ubot-sipon at hirap sa paghinga, ay agad ipasuri sa doktor. Basta't sama-sama at laging handa, kaya natin to! Isang paalala mula sa DOH, PCOO, KBP at ng himpilang ito.
You're still watching the PNA Newsroom. Community pantries in General Santos City will offer contraceptives to help the local government's population and reproductive health program. More on this and other news from William Theo.
The city government of General Santos will tap community pantries to promote its expanded population management program. The City Population and Management Office said negotiations are underway with organizers of several pantries to also offer contraceptives and campaign materials. Two of them have already agreed to provide spaces to display condoms, pills, and other related items. The initiative aims to promote family planning as well as address pressing problems such as teenage and unwanted pregnancy and the increasing cases of HIV/AIDS. Meanwhile, the Department of Agriculture in the Cordillera region has given away about 5 tons of vegetables and agriculture produce to the public through its Kadiwa Community Pantry. The pantry, which was first conducted on April 28, is a once-a-week activity of the DA to celebrate Farmers and Fisherfolk Month this May. The next Kadiwa Pantry will be held in outskirt villages to reach more families. In ILOCOS Norte, about 37 entrepreneurs showcased their creatively crafted products in a summer trade fair held at the Robinsons Mall in San Nicolas from May 6 to 10, 2021. The Partuat ni Kailokuan features a variety of products that are globally competitive, such as houseware, fashion items, fresh and processed food, wellness products, and many more. Mayor Alfredo Valdez lauded the Department of Trade and Industry and the participating micro, small, and medium enterprises for their continuing efforts to push for economic recovery. The featured products are also available online at shopin.ph. For the PNA Newsroom, I am William Theo.
Quezon City is opening at least 295 feeding stations in daycare centers to cater to its most vulnerable and needy residents. As part of its Grow QC nutritious feeding program, the Social Services Development Department prepares meals planned by its nutritionist dietitians with the help of daycare workers and parent volunteers. Mayor Joy Belmonte said they are able to provide healthy food to about 29,500 families a day. The ingredients are sourced from the city's urban farm projects in Villa Viena in Barangay Novaliches and Sitio Uno in Barangay North Fairview. Most of the beneficiaries are those most affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. Aside from the feeding stations, the Grow QC mobile kitchen also goes around the city to bring nutritious meals closer to communities. As part of preparations for the Tokyo Olympics, Japan announced that Olympic venues will be marked no-fly zones this summer to help protect against terrorism. The country's transport ministry said the no-fly zone will be enforced from July 21 to September 5. The no-fly zone will be in place from 2 hours before the start of competitions to an hour after they finish. The game's opening and closing ceremonies will also be protected. Regular flights departing from or arriving at Tokyo's Haneda Airport will not be subject to the restriction. The 2020 Tokyo Olympics are scheduled to be held between July 23 and August 8. The Paralympics will follow from August 24 to September 5. A town in Samar is undergoing an image overhaul from harboring terrorists to welcoming tourists, with the opening of its cold springs as tourist destinations. The local government of Matuguinao has spent 5 million pesos for the development of two resorts, the Maslog Cold Spring within the Gandara Matuguinao Road and the Matugnao Cold Spring near the town center. The resorts are open from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. and have an entrance fee of 25 pesos. Matuguinao used to be a geographically isolated and disadvantaged area and for a time was a hotbed for the New People's Army. Mayor Aran Bollier hopes to tap into the tourism potential of the cold springs, improve the economy, and erase the negative image of the town tainted by armed conflict. Aside from cold springs, the town boasts of waterfalls and caves that tourists can visit. Here's another look at today's biggest stories. Beefing up vaccination, another 1.5 million doses of government-procured Sinovac vaccines arrived today. The country's vaccine czar says more vaccine supplies are set to arrive this month. The government tightens measures against the entry of a double mutant coronavirus variant that was first detected in India. Time to come clean. The country's top diplomat seeks answers on why the country withdrawn its ships during the 2012 Scarborough Shoal standoff with China and who is behind it. And from insurgency to development, a town that was once a communist hotbed is slowly making a name for itself as a tourist destination. Thank you for watching another episode of the PNA Newsroom. To check more news content, visit our webpage or head on to the Philippine News Agency's Facebook and Twitter accounts. For more stories about the government and how it serves Filipinos, look for these hashtags in all of our social media platforms and websites. We are shown on the pages of the PCOO and its attached agencies. Also, watch us on television on PTV4 and IBC 13. And that's your daily dose of the biggest stories that you need to know from the PNA Newsroom. We tell stories that inspire change. I'm Marita Muaje. Have a good day.